Our story begins with a familiar adage, one that begs promise of beauty, fantasy, adventure, and above all else, love. Once upon a time, there lived a princess, a fairy princess. She saw the world around her not as it was, but as it could be, with just a touch of magic. This particular fairy had the gift of bringing out the beauty in all things. With the gentle touch of her lips, she revived the wilted, mended the broken, and breathed life into that which had lost its way. Sweetly she kissed her magic unto all who needed her. By and by she cared so deeply and gave so often that she didn't notice as her own light began to dim. One day the fairy came upon a fallen rose. Albeit weary, she could never deny that which called for the aid of her enchanting kiss. As the wavering sprite lifted the wilted rose from the dirt beneath her, a thorn from its stem pricked her finger. Instinctively she brought her delicate finger to her lips and kissed the wound. Suddenly the dull haze that had befallen upon the fairy princess lifted. Her beguiled lips, more exquisite than ever before, were now the reflection of the very rose that pierced her finger. The young fairy princess with the rose lips and the magical kiss had learned perhaps the greatest lesson of all, the divine power and beauty of loving oneself. For true love need only come from within, and as all great and true love stories do, ours ends happily. Ever after, that is. It has been a crazy 2 weeks and I've had so much fun making this tutorial. We have a lot of look to cover, so let's get started. I mixed Angel Veil and Hydra Touch primers because I like the properties of both. Once my skin was thoroughly saturated, I grabbed my color correcting green concealer for HD, of course. I have some redness in my skin and I knew I wanted as close to a perfectly white canvas as I could get. In sticking with the NYX Mix theme, I used my Pro Foundation Mixer in white and Studio Photogenic in nude. Making sure to blend it up into my hairline and onto my ears because I knew I'd be wearing a wig and I didn't want my natural color to show. Once that was nice and blended and I had a solid canvas, I reached for my Macaron lipstick in Coconut and decided to use it as sort of a concealer highlight in one. Even though my skin is naturally fair, I still wanted to add some highlight with a lighter color white, so that's why this color is so perfect for the look. But of course, with the added creamy texture of the lipstick, the HD finishing powder was an absolute must to set the color and make sure that it doesn't crease. This palette is so beautiful, I love it. I used just a little bit of the lighter brown shade to contour, just to give my cheekbones a little extra oomph. Next up is the eyeshadow in Frostbite, which is this beautiful iridescent shade, which I intended just to put on my lid, but I have impulse control problems, okay? These primal eyeshadows have hot in their name for a reason. They are absolutely awesome. Grabbing the hot red first, I began to just bring down my brow bone and widen the shape of my eyes. I wanted that caricature animated Disney wide-eyed look. And of course I had to bring the red down for a cool contour and then blend it up onto my brow bone, into my hairline again for the wig, and overall just kind of blending. First we had hot red and now we got vivid fire. I am loving the theme of this look. And I feel like you already know how I feel about these liners, but in case you didn't see any of the other videos where I mentioned them, I'm obsessed. They are the best, brightest, most beautiful, creamy, delicious thing ever. After the wing is completed, I take the Vivid Bright into my brow and start to sculpt it. Now, since I entered this contest as a lip artist, I guess you could say, I decided to keep the look relatively simple everywhere else. Nothing too crazy. I really wanted the focus to be on the lip. But what's a girl to do when someone sends you a little glitter? You gotta use a little glitter. Am I right? And I was so accidentally cool with this primer because it allowed me to fix some of the little lines that might not have been perfect with the Vivid Bright liner because it was such a creamy texture. And now we layer. You know you're doing it right if you find little flecks of red glitter everywhere, forever. At this point, I decided to take the Vivid Bright liner again and just extend my inner corner down to give it more of a fantasy look versus just a weirder version of a day look. I really wanted the character to look beautiful, but also kind of creepy in a way, but like good creepy. So I extended that bottom line to make my eyes look really big, and then I just smudge. Of course, you may have heard of the age-old trick of taking a white pencil and really smudging it into your waterline to make your eye appear even larger. Anything that goes into your waterline that's a creamy texture has to be set with a shadow if you want it to last. As soon as I saw the lingerie eye tints, I knew I was going to have to incorporate it into this look somehow. And I found the perfect way. It is the most beautiful highlight, you guys. You have to try it. I know it's supposed to go on your lid, but it was so shimmery and gorgeous and perfect. Oh, what's up, creepy hubby? What you doing? Boop. You want to creep up on me, you get booped on your head. That's the rule. And we're moving along to the Strobe of Genius beautiful highlight palette. I used this goddess of a product to set what we had just done with the highlight. At this point, I went in with Fireball eyeshadow to orange up and sort of deepen my contour lines and some of the eyeshadows. I was pulling a little pink on camera. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, liquid suede lipstick. We are finally approaching my favorite part of this tutorial. This is going to be the base color for the first lip in the transition of the rose. But first, we eyelash. These wispy beauties are called Vixen, and I enjoyed lots of blinking in them. Okay. It is finally time for me to talk about the lips. So many of you commented on Instagram and YouTube and said, I can't wait to see what you do. I can't wait to see what you come up with. And honestly, I was sitting there thinking, yeah, I can't wait to see what I do too. How the heck am I going to pull this off? So what I decided is that hopefully, should I move forward, and of course with this tutorial, I would just make the lips the central theme. But I am a makeup artist and I can do all kinds of different stuff, so I figured I would just take it easy on the actual makeup on my face and use the lips to really express the story. As soon as the theme was announced, I was, first of all, so excited. I'm sure everybody else was too, because who doesn't love fairy tale? And I knew I was going to want to do 2 different lip looks and kind of like a magical transition from one to the other. I decided to use the rose as the theme, and that the first design would be more of a pattern, almost foreshadowing the transition that's to come, when she discovers that as she kisses herself, the love comes from within, not from anyone else. Now let's talk some logistics. So here I am using just a tiny craft store brush in a gel liner with the base that you saw earlier, and literally just laying out different rose shapes and patterns and connecting them. I really didn't have any rules or an agenda. I just looked at about 1 million different reference pictures and just kind of went for it. That's sort of how I've always figured out my lip art. I just go for it and hope for the best. Now the second look is a little more on the technical side. I decided to just do one big ol' honkin' rose in the middle of my lip, and I didn't want there to be any question about what it was, so I knew there was going to have to be a major focus on detail, which has never really scared me away. So back to the Vivid Brights liner in Vivid Faya, I wanted to start laying out the petals, and somehow I needed to see the transition between them, so I just left a little white blank spot, and I figured I could either fill that in later with a gel black liner, which is actually what I did, or at least I could see what I was doing at that point. It was sort of a roadmap. The rose in the story signifies her blooming into her own person without needing anything from anyone else and without having to give something to get love. So that's why this was so important to me to get perfect. Now I'm going into those lighter lines separating the petals and defining them even more. This is going to really help when we do lay down the black lines and to give it a three-dimensional shape. I'm using NYX's liquid white liner. I'm just using a different brush to apply it, but the product is great because once it's on, it does not move. And this is super important for your lips because of everything you got going on. Talking, eating, drinking, all that good stuff. Now at some point here, my camera cut off, so ta-da! This is what it looks like once all the lines are complete and I went back in and added some more of the vivid bright red. The last and final step is to add just a little bit of the hot black shadow in between the smaller black lines that you added before, and this is going to just make it look like it's popping off of your lips like a sticker. The key to lip art or doing anything really detailed like this is just that it has to be a labor of love. I really enjoy sitting there for hours at a time and doing stuff like this. It's kind of like my form of meditation, but you may not enjoy it and that's totally fine. But if you do want to try it, just know that it's going to take patience and time, but it's so worth it in the end. Look how pretty it looks. The 11th hour, right before we decided to go out and shoot, I quickly wanted to add something to my neck. It just felt a little bit naked. So I grabbed that liquid suede color in Kitten Heel and I decided to add just a couple roses to my neck. This turned out to be super easy because of the shape of the sponge. I just threw some petals on there and left some negative space to show the shape of the flower, and that was basically it. At the very end I did throw on a couple leaves and I think I added a little shadow for dimension, but all in all it was a pretty easy thing to do for such a statement piece. Now when the fairy tale theme was announced, Redkin was kind enough to send us a beautiful package with these metal fix liquid pomades in them, and they're really shimmery, glittery, and they're meant to go in your hair, but I totally put them all over my body. Once I somehow managed to tame the blue curls and put them inside of my wig, I used Redkin's Windblown 5 to give my hair, well, a windblown look. Obviously she's a fairy and she sleeps outside, so she should have that perfected, I didn't try but I tried hair. A little scrunch, a little spritz, and we were good to go. Well, I think I have talked about every little aspect of this super detailed but super fun look. I am so grateful to you guys for stopping by, for supporting me. Don't forget to vote 3 times a day, every day for the next week. Thank you and I love you. Big hugs.